up the leaves and the magic is lost. Tell me you don't need no carrying on. You stand in the line just to hit a new low. You're faking a smile with the coffee to go. And tell me your life's been way offline. You fall to pieces every time. And I don't need no carrying on. Cause you had a bad day, you take it one down. You sing a sad song just to turn it around. You say you don't know, you tell me don't lie. You're working a smile and you go for a ride. You had a bad day, the camera don't lie. You're coming back down and you really don't mind. You had a bad day. You had a bad day.
We've all had bad days. We all feel that we've had more than our fair share of them too. Are they caused by attitudes or circumstance? What can we do to make bad days better? Are bad days simply unavoidable? It seems bad days are ubiquitous, which is what can make them such a bonding experience between adults and children alike. Everyone seems to have that one moment where they publicly trip up the stairs, forget everything, lose important items, etc., etc. Today on our show, we're going to explore bad day stories, the origin of bad days, and finally, how to avoid them, or try to at least. Act 1. Recounting bad days. In this first segment, we will talk about the worst bad days that people have experienced. From the truly tragic to the sympathetically hilarious, here is a collaboration of bad days from civilians in Salida, Colorado.
Okay, so the day began, we were getting ready to go to New York. It was 2 years ago, almost 3. And when we got to the airport, at first everything was fine, and then our flight was delayed for 3 hours. So we're like, oh, okay, well, that's kind of normal, but we were a little bummed out, of course.
Yeah.
And so then later, while we were taking the little train thingy to get to your terminal, we thought it would be fun to subway surf and not hold on to the rail. So the car kind of jerked, and Sophie stepped back and stepped directly on my toe, which was, I was of course wearing sandals, and then basically my nail came off and went at a 90-degree angle.
Oh my god.
Blood everywhere, tourists looking at us really strangely, and it was super embarrassing. And so it was very painful too. And so Miss Lembird was like, all right, well, we've got to take you to the airport hospital people. So we find the little golf cart with the hospital medical group. And she starts wrapping my toe, and she's talking about, you need to get surgery right now, and, you're going to get an infection and all this stuff. And she's like, you're going to have to miss your flight. You're just going to have to go to the hospital. And we're like, no, we are not doing that. So we ended up just wrapping the toe and hoping that it would be okay. So we got on our flight, and mostly everything went okay. But towards the end of the trip, we started just circling New Jersey for an hour. So it was crazy, and there was turbulence, and it was just a scary flight. So then we get there, and all of our phones start beeping because there's a flash flood warning.
Oh no.
So we have no idea where we're going. None of us have been to Manhattan before, or very limited experience. So, and it starts pouring down.
Oh no.
And so we're, trying to find our apartment in the Upper West Side. It's late at night. We're starving. And so we just find this, whatever restaurant, what's it called? Jackson Hole, some Wyoming spin-off restaurant.
Oh, no.
And then, so by this time, it is pouring down. The streets are flooded. There's, not a soul in sight. And, we don't have rain gear. And we're, freaking out. And it's probably close to midnight.
Oh, dear.
So the people at the restaurant give us, these little trash bags to wear. And it's so wet, and so we just start running, looking for our apartment, running in the streets of New York. None of us can keep up. I still have my wrapped toe, so I throw off my flip-flops, and we are running in the streets, raining, pouring outside, barefoot, New York City. Who knows what's on the sidewalk? And then we finally get to the apartment, and it's a little bit dingy. And, you know, there's ants in the kitchen, and we're just like, we're here. And then our bad day kind of ended after that. We just conked out.
I managed to forget all of my homework at home for every class that I spent hours on.
Oh no.
And I didn't sleep because I was doing it, then I forgot it, and my house is an hour away, so I couldn't get it. And then class after class, I kept forgetting things, and then I got into a car wreck after school. So
Oh no, are you okay?
it off. Yeah, I'm okay.
Oh.
I had a concussion and sprained wrist, 2 cracked ribs, but I'm bueno.
Oh no.
So that was my Monday.
Calm down. It wasn't that bad of a day. I just broke my arm.
I've ever had.
Well, I've had, I guess, a lot of bad days, but the one that comes to mind the most would be the day where I dislocated my hip. That was back in 1988, and it was in February. At the time, I was living in Telluride and was skiing. It was a powder day. Lots of powder. It was a big day, probably 10, 12 inches, and I'd been skiing most of the day, and about 2:30, it's time to head down and get ready to go to work. So on my last run, I was skiing through this area called Solitude, which is a very remote kind of treat area. There's really nothing like it at Monarch. You know, Mirkwood's kind of remote, but it would be even more remote than going out to Mirkwood. So I was skiing through there and skiing along really fast, and came around one turn to the right and was turning back to go around, and I didn't see a tree. It was kind of shadowed behind the tree. I turned around and I hit it head on. Broke my nose, and my knee was bent. My knee was slightly bent because I was in the middle of a turn, so the impact hit me right below the kneecap, right on the shin bone there, and the force of that popped my hip right out of its socket. So at the time I didn't know how bad it was. I got up and like tried to kind of put my skis back on. My leg was kind of like jelly, and that didn't work. And at that point I realized I was in a lot of pain, not just my nose. You know, I wasn't kind of in shock. I didn't even realize the hip was out. So I realized I wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't even going to be able to walk out of there. So I lay back down on the snow and started to yell for help. I was skiing by myself, which is probably I guess not probably, is a bad idea. And so there was nobody nearby and very few people skiing there, so I knew I was kind of in for some trouble. So I was laying there yelling, and probably took 20 minutes before somebody came by. Finally this girl came by that I actually knew. Her name was Jen Sinchero. You know, I'll never forget her name, even though I wasn't close to her, because she came by and she heard me yelling and came and talked to me and said she'd go get ski patrol. Well, Telluride's a huge mountain, so to go down to the bottom of the lift to get ski patrol took her another 20 minutes. And then by the time ski patrol gets the word and gets up a sled to come get me, we're talking about another 20 minutes or so. So at this point I'd probably been laying in the snow for over an hour before they came to get me. I hear them coming through the woods, and the ski patrol brought their sled in probably about 40-50 yards below where I was. And it's deep snow, and there's no way for them to get the sled up, so they had to take the sled all the way down to the bottom of the lift, ride the lift again with the sled, and come back and get me. The second time, they did leave somebody there who was, you know, kind of close to me, but even then he couldn't really get up. He tried, he got close to me, but so I was laying there waiting another 20 minutes or 30 minutes for them to get the sled to me. Then they finally get me in the sled and I go down, and Telluride's full of bumps, a bunch of bump runs, and really there's no easy way to get down. This is on lift 9 if anybody's familiar with that. And so I'm getting bumped around, going downhill in the sled with my hip dislocated, and I'm in agony, and I don't really even remember a lot of it. I was in such a state of shock that my whole memory just of the event is really shoddy of that part of it. But I do recall getting to the hospital, or it wasn't really a hospital, it was kind of like a care center in Telluride downtown, and the doctor took a look at me and he's like, "Yep, that your hip's definitely dislocated." And he was a young doctor and he did not feel like he had the skills to put it back in place. To get a hip back in place, you basically just have to pull on the leg as hard as you possibly can and pull on it, and then it'll slide back into its socket. In any case, he didn't think he could do it. So they packed me into an ambulance and sent me down to Montrose, which is another hour and a half in snowy weather, about an hour if it's not snowy. But they did allow me to make a phone call, so I called my girlfriend at the time, Amy Moorfield, who ends up becoming my wife. So she comes and she rides on the ambulance with me, and we get down to Montrose, and the doctor down there was able to get my hip back in. And I do recall that. That's one memory I have, is the guy yanking on it, and then it just went from like severe agony into like very little pain afterwards. Actually, it was pretty remarkable. And the ironic thing is, the whole time they wouldn't give me drugs. They wouldn't give me morphine or anything until after they got the hip in place. And then the lady comes around and she's like, "Would you like some drugs for your pain?" And I said, "Well, I don't really have any pain anymore. I sure would have liked them an hour or two ago." But for some reason they were reluctant to give them to me, the guy in Telluride. I can't really blame him. He was a young doctor, but he messed up. I mean, he definitely should have taken care of me, and he should have given me some drugs for the pain. In any case, that's basically the end of the story.
Act 2, the origin of the bad day. In this second act, we will talk about the cause of bad days. Are they caused from our attitudes towards bad events, or the bad events themselves? I know I've had bad events happen to me and thought it was hilarious, and I've also had bad events happen to me that infuriated me. Why is that so?
Mine was caused from circumstance. I certainly had a great attitude. I was having a great day, and then it just turned. But yeah, I mean, anyone can have a bad day if they want to. That's easy.
Mm-hmm.
It's like everyone says you can choose how you feel about something, and it's true to a certain point, but like sometimes enough events happen that it doesn't feel like a choice anymore to like have a bad mood or something.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of how it works. Because I think it takes a lot of energy to choose to like be happy, and it's a lot easier to be down or sad. And
Totally
sometimes we just get tired of trying, and then we just let go and just allow ourselves to just, you know what, today I don't even want to try.
Yeah.
I think it usually starts with an event, and then you get a bad attitude, and then it's just like everything seems bad after that. I think it's like the small things, because it's like a snowball effect, I think, for me. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
No, bad days do not depend on your attitude. I don't believe that, because I had a good attitude. I was just heeling down the street and I just broke my arm. So yeah.
I think you have to have bad days in order to appreciate good days. So if you only had good days, you wouldn't know what a good day is. You'd think it's just a normal day. Yeah.
Act 3, how to avoid a bad day. Bad days seem to be unavoidable. Try as we might, there will always be times when things just don't go our way. How should we handle those moments, and what are suggestions to avoiding the negativity that bad days ensue upon us for the future?
Jeez. Don't wear open-toed shoes on the subway and freaking hold on to this thing, or sit down. And I don't know, I guess always come prepared for the weather and stuff.
I mean, how do you define bad and good? You know, what are the parameters for how we judge a day? I mean, really, you can't have good without bad, or you can't have evil without. Yeah, that's a tricky question. I guess it's.
I don't know. I think it's like a good night's sleep. As cheesy as that sounds, it's good because it gives you energy for the day and then have more energy to try. And then trying to just remember, like, little good things, or like whenever something bad starts to happen, like go to a different place in your mind. Like just think like this is only a moment and like go further.
All right.
Bad days are seemingly insignificant, but they can have a lasting appearance on our outlook and attitude towards life. Sometimes bad days make for great stories like we heard earlier, but sometimes they can pull at our heartstrings and bring out sympathy from even the coldest of hearts. Bad days seem to be a consequence of a bad attitude, but teaching oneself to remain positive in dark times is easier said than done. Finally, we learn that bad days are completely unavoidable. What is avoidable is the negative attitude, but as I said before, keeping a positive attitude when a snowball of unfortunate events is rolling towards you is harder than it seems.
That's the worst day of my life.
So I just took it in as, wow, this will be something I'll remember for the rest of my life.
Is be careful skiing in the trees by yourself. Although I still ski in the trees by myself quite a bit. So I guess I didn't learn that lesson too well. But I'm just a little more careful now. I've slowed down. I don't go quite as fast as I used to.